It's your boy BlastphamousHD, and today we are here to watch some cinema summary. Let's be naughty.
Your neighbors are turning into psychotic monsters ready to kill anyone they see. Inside and outside, they hunt during the day and the night. What do you do when you're stuck in your apartment with no food and where anyone can monsterize into a killing machine? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat every single one of these monsters in Sweet Home.
What? I'm so
This
glad
gamer
I watched
Hyun-soo
this.
is down on his luck and trying to live cheaply. But what he's not thinking about is security. This building is seriously broken down. There's cracked paint covering every inch, the main sign has an arm-sized hole through it, and his head nearly gets sliced off from a rusty old weed whacker. These might look like superficial flaws, but they reflect much deeper problems, because this place simply isn't safe. It won't keep things out, and it can't protect you well from within.
It is not
and if
safe.
this is our only security guard, who happens to be doubling as a superintendent, this building is vulnerable in all the wrong places. In his apartment, he gets offered a drink by the security guard, who starts looking through the people. He not only has a nosebleed, but this guy's acting weird as f***. Regardless, I would install extra bolt locks on my door, because he has the keys to every apartment in this place, and I don't trust him at all. A week has passed and Hyun-soo here has been playing video games non-stop. He goes to pick up his shipment of instant noodles and sees that it's been ripped open with a trail of packets leading to his neighbor's apartment, a model living next door. He sees a cat's severed head roll into view before a hand grabs it. Backing away, he steps on a pack of noodles, the crunch alerting the monster. Okay, in moments like this, you will choose either fight or flight as the brain's amygdala takes over and your nervous system switches into full-on sympathetic response mode. For Hyun-soo here, it's flight, and I would do the same. You see something like this, lock your door and call the cops, which he actually does, but the signal is dead. Looks like we have to figure out how to deal with this on our own. Now, there's no clear indication if he's dealing with some bloodthirsty psycho or something supernatural. In situations like this, it's hard to trust your own senses, but he heard the voice saying hungry, so I might offer food to leave me alone. Unfortunately, ramen doesn't seem to be appreciated, so unless we find another cat, we don't have a viable way to distract him.
Have another cat. You gotta
Another
find
twist
another
gets thrown
cat.
into the mix as a doorbell rings.
Still
It's his
waiting.
neighbor, the model, and she's begging for help. And look, I gotta be real with you here for a second. It was at that moment my dumbass was mad at Hyun-soo for not letting this pretty girl in for safety while a monster is right next door.
Get
But
them
be smarter than
booty
me here,
cheeks.
guys. If a pretty woman knocks on your door and wants your help, something's wrong. It never happens.
Not. She's horny usually. You gotta open that up.
Trust me. Asking to see her arms is smart, because if they look like this, maybe don't open the door. She gets mad and goes berserk. And we get the confirmation. She's the monster we saw earlier. But there's something else here we could easily miss that makes her an even bigger threat. This monster takes things personally. She can even manipulate and trick you, trying to act normal or trying to pretend there's an emergency. Once we've realized this, I'm not trusting a living soul in this building. We need to start thinking about how to get help. The phone signals are blocked, so at the very least, I would put a banner out my window using bed sheets and write a message that there's an emergency. But it's not just about us, because if this thing gets to other people, it might be more than just cats it wants to eat. We need to warn everyone we can for the safety of the entire building. Hyun-soo walks out into the hall where he sees this gangster coming down the stairs and suddenly collapses. This seems like it's from his instant noodle only diet, but it's actually a sign of something much worse. Upstairs, the guitarist girl sees the same woman at her door looking a little worse for wear as it screams for her to open up. Okay, this monster has moved upstairs and we can see this thing won't stop. It wants food now and it's gone strong enough to punch clean through a metal door. We can't stay in the apartment forever and it can break in with enough time. The first thing to do is collect whatever you have in the apartment that could be used as a weapon or fashioned into one. Then we have to think about escape. They're lucky to have a camera on their front door, so they can see the monster is nearby. I would throw something down the hallway as a loud distraction and run downstairs to call the police. In the lobby, the other tenants discover that the shutters have been lowered, the security guard is missing, and their phones have no service. Also, all exits and entrances have been chain locked, meaning someone has trapped them here on purpose. And there are a lot of people down here trying to leave. Now, padlocks can actually be snapped open using 2 wrenches and some leverage. We might find some in the security room since the guard was also the superintendent. But if not, having more people gives us a better chance to escape, get help, or neutralize this monster. I would find out everyone's job and skill sets to see whether we should go after the thing ourselves. If everyone is a useless office worker, at least we could barricade the security guard's room and hide in there, with access to the cameras to watch the monster's movements. This med student breaks the chains to the management office, where inside one of the tenants, who is a firefighter, tries calling for help, but all the lines are busy with disaster reports, and the call cuts out. Okay, these guys don't know there's a monster in the building yet, so I might first think this was a natural disaster like a typhoon or tsunami. Shouldn't be trying to leave until we learn more. And if there's a citywide threat, this building is the most valuable thing we have. Also, this woman is a firefighter, so she has a better understanding than most about emergency evacuation and emergency protocol. I would make sure she was a part of all planning and decision making from here on out. The shopkeeper starts pressing buttons and the front door shutter begins opening, but the tenants in the lobby see a very tall creature standing just outside, and this dog is not happy about it. I can't blame them too much for trying to get out, but once they see this very not human thing standing there, it confirms our suspicions that there's a citywide emergency, and we need to turn this building into a safe zone. The student sprays the monster away with a fire extinguisher until he gets it past the shutters, but they close way too slowly and he runs out of gas. This guy was smart to use the fire extinguisher because it's projectile. There isn't much of this building that doesn't require close combat of some kind, and that would be a losing strategy with this kind of monster. One thing has become immediately clear. With this many monsters, help will not be coming, and we're on our own. We've closed the shutters, but it might not be enough. His tongue can extend really far, and if he was really hungry, he could approach closer to reach inside easily. We need to plan for the worst, so I'd be trying to narrow the holes in the front gate by unwinding metal close hooks and wrapping them diagonally across the holes in the gate. It's all metal, and if it's wrapped tightly enough, it could provide a little more security. Meanwhile, upstairs, the guitarist girl has been taking care of Hyun-soo since he passed out, and he's not in good shape. She leaves to check out a noise and never notices social media is blowing up with the top 3 trending topics being monster, state of alert, and nosebleed. She goes down the stairwell where the drunk is muttering to himself, and when she passes by, she sees his nose bleeding like crazy. There's something really wrong with this guy. Alright, this girl has already seen a monster and it nearly bashed her door in. So if I'm seeing someone acting like this, I'm not wasting a second. The first instinct is to swing for the head, but this is not the right thing to do. She's 3 to 4 steps lower than him, which is a very difficult angle to strike. And contact with the head could be easily blocked, if it even reaches at all. In this situation, we should swing for the knees. He won't be able to block, we'll get a fast and direct swing, and it will knock him down, giving us another chance to strike. Another tenant enters the stairwell, sees the drunk guy turn into a monster, and chops the guy's head clean in half with a samurai sword. Okay, this is an important takeaway. These things have physical bodies and they can be killed like any living thing. Now it's easy to be sympathetic, but if we want to survive, we need a killer instinct. Like this guy here who takes one of them out like he's playing Yakuza 6. But brute strength won't always do the job, so we need weapons. Kitchen knives are a good place to start, but close combat is not going to give you the best advantage. And nearly everyone in this building has no weapons training, so we'll need something easier to wield without experience. The roof would be good to scout for scrap metal, pipes, poles, or wooden planks that could be used. Baseball is a popular sport in Korea, so there could be bats in other apartments. But clearly, it would be better to kill them when they're still more human than monster, because they get back up more dangerous than before. Downstairs, the tenants are barricading the entrance when everyone's phones receive a notification about an epidemic. Anyone exhibiting nosebleeds, blackouts, and aggressive behavior should be quarantined. They're all nervous. This group didn't understand until now that this was a sickness, and they can catch it. And they argue about where they should go. The basement parking lot is shuttered and the apartments aren't secure. I would want to stay downstairs where we have more operational control and send teams to scout certain floors for food, resources, and weapons using the ground floor as a base. The next day, Hyun-soo the gamer wakes up and sees the city is in ruins, when all of a sudden, he starts bleeding from the nose like that woman, and he'll turn into a monster just like she did. Looking for answers, he researches the illness on a blog called Kuru, and the med student has found the website too. They learn that the writer himself was infected, and he described it as a curse, with an unknown cause and no cure. But if they want to live, there's something they should know. Both tenants are about to discover what that is, but the internet cuts out. God, I hate it when that happens. With everything that's going on that's putting your life at risk, it's easy to overlook some important resources, power, and the internet. An unmanaged power station will provide 4 to 6 hours of electricity before blackouts occur. South Korea has nuclear power plants, which would last longer as it is more automated, but it's only supplied to certain areas and will eventually give out as well. And for him, this means no video surveillance of the front door. The internet will be gone even faster as the system would be overloaded with the activity of panicking citizens. We need to use these tools to gain as much information as possible before they're gone. If this is happening everywhere in the city, there might be information about what to do, how to beat them, what their vulnerabilities are, and if the government is going to help. It's been 8 hours since Hyun-soo here collapsed, and he's feeling hungry after all that research. He opens the door to grab the box of instant noodles, but the drunk from the stairwell has come back to life as a monster. Okay, obviously, we shouldn't be opening our doors on a whim, but once it's inside, we either need to fight it or lock him in the apartment. It might seem smarter to lock him in because it guarantees your safety in the moment and keeps him from roaming the halls, but it's not the right decision, because this may be the best chance we get at killing this thing. We can't just use a pole and bash it though. This monster has a special ability. He can't see, but he can't hear like you wouldn't believe. I would take the sharpest object within reach and stab him in the ear, so he can't see or hear now, making him easier to kill in a fight. That way we can keep the apartment and the building might have one less monster. Hyun-soo goes with option 3 and stays quiet, and the monster leaves. Lucky. Very lucky. Later he looks at the window and sees a father about to rappel down the side of the building. The man gets attacked by an eyeball monster and falls to his death as his kids cry out for help. The gamer throws his computer monitor at the eyeball and it comes up to attack him. These monsters are not limited to the human form, and obviously we got to go for its weakness, which is the eye, but it's not going to be enough. It can stretch its neck and it's strong, but this means we might be able to trap it. I would try to make it follow me through the hallway to stretch its neck further into the building and down the stairs. If I can get it stuck, it will be easier to trap and injure. This guy shoots at it with an air cannon that he fashioned out of a crutch, which is awesome. But it's clearly exposed that we can't always guarantee to kill these things, even if we sever their heads. So fighting them won't always be a solution, unless we have a lot more power to disintegrate them completely. And from this point forward, fire might be the best way to go. The veteran has another piece of valuable information. Phone calls make noise, then cut out when a monster is nearby. By staying on call, disturbances can help give you an early warning. We can use this to clear the building. You could go floor by floor and determine which ones have monsters and either seal them off or kill them. Stay on call, keep your batteries charged, and don't go anywhere without it. Hyun-soo here meets him in person and the veteran upgrades his weapon. It turns out the man is an amazing mechanic and tells him to go save the kids. This guy should be fashioning weapons for every man, woman, and child. We need to think like we're soldiers at war against these monsters and he's our blacksmith. And since he can solder metal, I would take apart a row of doors and solder them together to permanently seal off a stairwell to trap any monsters or higher floors. Hyun-soo, the gamer, sneaks through the building and nearly avoids the blind monster. He reaches the kids to rescue them, but suddenly he starts showing symptoms, and he tells the kids to run away, but it's too late. He's a monster now. Or is he? Hyun-soo seems to snap out of his hallucination just in time to get knocked down by a giant creature, but in a super anime moment, Hyun-soo holds the monster back and yells at the kids to run before he gets beaten into a wall. Something is definitely going on with Hyun-soo. Somehow they've managed to survive long enough for a tenant with a sword to come and slice this protein beast. He and the guitarist drag Hyun-soo to safety, and they see his eyes go from black to normal. So he has a monster. That's bad. But for now he can't control it, and even if it's risky, it kinda gives us a chance at fighting these things, because he might have extra strength like they do, or a special ability we can take advantage of. The children continue to make their way upstairs, but the blind monster suddenly appears and blocks their way. They try to stay quiet, but the beefcake is back and reaches out for them. Their screams of terror alert the blind monster, who attacks the other one, and the two kids run out of the way. About time something goes our way in this building of terror. This is a clear indication we can exploit each monster's tendencies in our favor. The blind monster will attack Noise, and the beefcake will fight back, meaning Noise can be used as a lure to get the blind monster killed. The swordsman comes up with a plan and leads it through the complex. He reaches the end of a corridor and jumps out of the way, baiting the beefcake to jump out the window. Okay, these things die hard, but they can definitely be injured. Every monster will have its own unique weaknesses, and we need to start looking for them to survive in this place. So the main strategy is to make them immobile. No arms or legs will make for a reasonably harmless monster. And for Beefcakes here, who's got too much muscle to fight conventionally, slashing his Achilles tendon will make him unable to walk. It's simple biomechanics of anthropomorphic anatomy. We find out that the building lost power, and that the firefighter girl volunteered to go down to the electrical room to try to turn it back on. But she got set up by the med student who knew there was a monster down there. This guy is cold and tactical, and he's not wrong. But this firefighter is extremely valuable to the group. I would have been upfront with her because she's built to fend for herself. She's even saved everyone's lives in the building, and now he's totally throwing her under the bus. The med student makes an announcement for all survivors to come downstairs where it's safe, but then the radio goes offline. Gathering people is good, but we have to have smart allocation of resources and skills. There is actually more upside to having two bases, one upstairs and one downstairs. The lobby base camp can ration food and relay it to the apartment base, while the strongest and bravest stay to clear the monsters, save more people from their apartments, and scavenge for food and supplies. Back in the lobby, this woman is trying to break out of the building to find her daughter, but then they see a girl running towards them. She stumbles and limps her way to her mother as the med student tries to figure out what to do. Okay, this sounds heartless, but we don't know if this girl is infected or not, and it's adding another risk to the building. We have to ask ourselves what is more likely, that she survived all night outside with all these monsters around, or that she's infected. It wouldn't be a popular decision to lock her out, so I would let her in, but immediately lock her up in an apartment to monitor for nosebleeds and any signs of turning so we can kill her quickly if necessary. The soldier runs out to save her, but they both get run through and killed by the long-tongued monster. God, this thing is brutal. The student starts putting the barricade back up and barely avoids the monster's tongue piercing through as the shutter begins to close. After defeating the beefcake, the group spent the night at the veteran's apartment. By the next day, the guitarist and the swordsman are prepared to leave for the first floor, with the infected Hyun-soo deciding to join them. The soldier gives the swordsman a shield to take with him, and he's made it out of a door. This is incredible work, but right now I'm starting to think about if there's a better way to fight these monsters than with swords and shields. This guy should be making traps for us, because even if the monsters are strong and have special abilities, they aren't exactly smart. Things like bear traps, tiger traps, and snares would all be easy for this guy to make, and could go a long way in keeping us safe and dealing with the monsters more intelligently. Down in the basement, a spider-like monster goes to attack the cocoon and finds it empty. The firefighter has escaped through the ventilation shaft. This was really her only option, because the room with the cocoon was locked. Don't try to fight this thing without help, because it has more range and can move better than you, plus every leg has a huge stinger that can pierce through metal. But if it's taken the form of a spider, it might have the vision of a spider, which is surprisingly terrible. They rely on touch and vibration more than sight despite having 8 eyes. I might try using this to my advantage. I would take something from this room with me first, like the wire, and instead of running through the ventilation making vibrations, I'd look for a T-junction in the vents, use the wire to cause vibrations away from me, and stay still and quiet on the opposite side. She breaks a vent fan to lower herself into another room, but the spider catches her. Thinking quickly, she breaks a window and grabs a broken shard, sawing through the webbing to escape. The tenants find out that martial law has been declared and the military is in control. They're told the infection doesn't spread through the air or blood, but it's related to human desire, and anyone exhibiting symptoms of nosebleeds, fainting, or hallucinations should be locked up. These creatures are durable and heal very fast, but they do have 2 weaknesses. They can be damaged and killed during a period of time called the golden hour, and secondly, they can be burned to death. But dealing with this means we're killing them while they're still in human form, and that can get emotionally very ugly. I would designate a person in each base camp to be officially in charge of these executions, so that there isn't a situation where people who aren't mentally prepared for something extreme like this allow another person to turn into a monster. And it needs to be brought to the group for a vote, because if everyone isn't on board, everyone's lives are at risk. Meanwhile, the gamer and his crew find a dead body, and it's warm. This is really bad news for them, because it means he's been killed very recently and that a monster could be near. They don't see one, but on their way down, something knocks the guy down the stairwell and he takes a deadly fall, splatting onto the floor. He wakes up in another room where the med student tells him he's been asleep for 8 hours, and it's obvious that this kid has been infected. Okay, this guy can somehow survive deadly falls and heal quickly. If he's on our side, there's no way I'm not going to try to use this as an advantage against the monsters. We've established with Beefcakes here that some of these monsters are too dangerous to fight, but he clearly doesn't have the same risks as us. I would use him to lure monsters into traps, because the worst case scenario is he ends up back in the medbay for 8 hours. The shopkeeper throws a fit and screams that they need to kill him, but then his nose starts bleeding. Yeah, what was it you were saying, old man? Downstairs, the gamer is told by the med student they need him to do dangerous jobs for the tenants. His first task is to bring the soldier down here to help reinforce the barricade, but he's told to leave the kids if something goes wrong. I hate to say it, but he's right. Kids are our future, but right now we won't even have one unless we defeat these monsters. Firefighter isn't happy that he's using the gamer, but tells her they need the soldier and the gamer can heal fast. As long as he's strong enough to resist the infection, he can be their ultimate weapon. I have no problem with this whatsoever. We need to use people as resources because everyone has unique skills. He's a risk to have around groups of people, so he's best put to use to scavenge, run errands, and do things the others can't do. The med student tells the woman about the Crew blog and what he read on it. She remembers her fiance had a blog called Crew before he died, and he didn't want her to know about it. She knows it must be the same one, but why would her husband know anything about this infection? Hyun-soo and the gangster are walking up the stairwell when the man is suddenly grabbed by a giant hand. Hyun-soo here chases after him and gets knocked down by a super fast monster with giant legs. It sprints towards the kid, but someone shoots it with a crossbow bolt and it runs away. This old man and his nurse appear and rescue the 2 survivors. They're lucky to get some help, because this monster might be the toughest one yet. If it's so fast you can't even react to it, how do you kill it? That night, the veteran reinforces the barricades, and they're gonna need it badly, because the tongue monster gets grabbed by a massive hand as something lets out a roar. The next day, the guitar starts bleeding from her nose, and the tenants are horrified to find out she's infected. They sound the alarm, and the swordsman leads her into a net trap they've set up. The firefighter realizes this infection can be caught by anyone, and remembers her husband's Kuru blog. She must know what happened, and decides to head out on this motorcycle to his old workplace. It's risky, but she could find answers that tell us what we need to know about the infection. I wouldn't want her to leave though, because she's too valuable to the planning, safety, and defense of the group. It might be better to send the gangster, who is strong enough to defend himself in the wild, and he would help if there was something in it for him. Things are getting more dangerous for the group. Others are getting infected and monsters are still in the building. Now, structure is important in survival settings. We have to be on guard 24/7 and it requires organization, cooperation, and discipline. They create 4 main rules for everyone to follow. Rule 1. Move together in groups of 2 or more and report anything unusual immediately. This is so vital, and it's also very common sense. Being alone is almost never a good option in survival scenarios. You're always safer with company to either defend or get help. Rule 2. Eat once a day and only the amount prescribed. Resources need to be rationed, and not everyone is going to go along with this. It's going to be resistant and it needs to be enforced, but as fairly and as democratically as possible. Things should be voted on, and that's a great way to have everyone buy into cooperating with the group. Rule 3. Everyone will have their temperature checked every night at 8 p.m. If someone gets sick, they'll want to keep it a secret, so we can't trust anyone. A hard rule to check for infection won't let anyone slip through the cracks, and you can catch a potential threat more quickly, keeping everyone more safe. Rule 4. Quarantine the infected. Obviously, they shouldn't be near the healthy, because they could turn. This kid is an exception, but even still, how do we know he's not going to get dangerous and violent at some point? We don't. Not until the symptoms have been studied in other cases. I would still lock him down until enough time had passed that I was sure he's not a threat to us anymore. Hyun-soo the gamer goes upstairs to scavenge more supplies, but he knows the sprinter monster is still around and has an idea. He sets up multiple springs and fishing line to act as an alarm while he searches the apartments. He hears his alarm go off and falls to the ground as the sprinter monster comes running into the room. Now the scene ends and we never see them fight, which is really strange. But okay. We can't fight this thing normally because he's so fast you won't be able to react to him to fight or protect yourself. But he still relies on the laws of friction to launch himself forward. And simply by reducing friction, we can slow this guy down. Instead of alarm balloons, I'm greasing up the floors with oils, dish soap, KY jelly, anything I could find to make it impossible to run. And
gotta have the KY jelly.
Because he's going so fast, if he slips, he's going to crash hard. I would also line the hallways with steel wire. These things together make the building impossible to run through. Downstairs, the tenants are emptying bottles and creating Molotov cocktails when they hear one of the women blow her whistle as something lumbers towards her. They all rush out and the shopkeeper's wife realizes this thing is her husband and she insists on killing it herself. Okay, there's no TV anymore and this is the best entertainment they can get, but it's not safe. They should use the buddy system so that someone is there with a weapon for backup if she can't handle herself. I honestly don't even know why they would wait long enough for this guy to wander out on his own. They should have killed him long before this, or contained him until he was showing symptoms of transformation and ended from within the confinement area. The firefighter reaches her fiance's office and finds his research notes from the Crew blog. He had become infected and was trying to resist for 15 days as his condition would have stabilized and he would become a special infectee. That's when the military shows up and takes the woman hostage. She cuts a deal with the commander, offering the infected Hyun-soo someone who can resist monsterization in exchange for her life. Back in the apartment, the whole complex is powerless. The water is going to be cut off soon, and the food is running out. Power being out is bearable, but running out of drinking water is a problem they need to solve immediately. It's always important to be thinking further ahead than anyone else when it comes to resource management in a survival situation. A city's water and sewage is relatively automated using gravity to its advantage, so it would likely be available longer than electricity, but getting access to new sources of food and water will force you outside. There are hundreds of abandoned supermarkets across the city to scavenge, and it's the best place to start. But before it ever gets this bad, we have soil here, so we should start planting vegetables as soon as we realize this is an apocalyptic scenario. Gardening obviously takes time, but it's at least the path forward to free, sustainable food. Later, Hyun-soo here is told that the tenants have to leave soon as they're low on resources with no guarantees of their safety. He's sent down to scout the parking lot where something knocks him over and hangs him upside down. They see this on the camera and go down to help. As they walk through, they see the sprinter monster standing there, unresponsive. The med student assumes it's asleep, and they carefully walk the other way. These monsters actually sleep, which is literally a survival mechanism for the brain and body to maintain functioning and run smoothly. If it wasn't necessary for survival, a species would have evolved out of it, and that hasn't happened ever.
Shit.
I take account of the time, because it could mean they have biological clocks that make them more likely to sleep at this time of the day or night, and choose to scavenge the building or even go outside only during those hours. But right now, this is their best and only chance to stealth kill a sprinter monster, and I would have taken the opportunity. The squad finds the gamer in a cocoon and frees him, but the guitar stops her back, waking up the sprinter. The med student cleverly uses the car alarms to distract the sprinter. Its greatest strength is its speed, and so if you know where it will be going, like a triggered car, you could ambush it. However, this also wakes up any other monsters in the vicinity and puts your whole group in jeopardy. So retreat is a good option until we can take them out one at a time or have enough backup to fight them, something the old man does with his kick-ass flamethrower. Upstairs, the veteran is running for his life, but it's not going to be an option for him and it's too dangerous to fight, which leaves trapping as the best solution, but you'll only have one shot and you can't let it escape. The legs are the most dangerous part of this monster, so we need to take them out of the equation in order to beat it. His trap was a great idea because if the spider is suspended, it can't use its legs and we can either try to kill it or run away. The problem with their strategy was in thinking they could do this with this tiny little rope and a couple of screws. The monster must weigh less than this fridge, or about 120 kilograms, because tipping it pulls the spider off the ground. And judging by the fraying here, I would guess it's a natural fiber rope less than 2 centimeters in diameter, which has a lower tensile strength than synthetic fibers. Even if it can hold up the monster, it's not gonna last long. And they should have strengthened the rope by braiding it, or used stronger screws so it can't break the metal frame off the wall. The other tenants try to rescue him before Hyun-soo appears and kills it.
Damn.
The next day, the nurse, the gangster, and Hyun-soo here get ready to scavenge for more supplies. But as they're pulling out of the parking lot, the car suddenly gets flipped over. The gamer Hyun-soo wakes up and sees the beefcake monster has grown gigantic ever since it leapt out of the building, and there's nothing he can do with his spear. Okay, this is in no way a fair fight. We'll never take it down in combat, so my thinking is if we can't fight it from the outside, maybe we can kill him from the inside. It takes 3 milligrams of fentanyl, which is only this much, to kill a man. If we're already going out for food and water at this point, we should be checking the local hospitals for drugs as well, and fentanyl is the way to go. I would inject the beefcake with as much as I could get my hands on. By sticking several needles onto the monster, you might just have a shot. The old man throws Molotov cocktails at the monster and sets it on fire, but it's useless. He runs over to help the gamer Hyun-soo, but as he's carrying him, his nose begins to bleed and the monster is back for revenge. A fire truck crashes into the beefcake and pushes it off the ledge before pushing flaming debris onto the creature and setting it on fire. Things have returned back to normal, but the shopkeeper's wife reveals,
"Please tell me that shopkeeper turns into a monster and fights the beefcake monster. That'd be fire."
help kill him. It highlights an important point though. Always clear the place out. They should have sent bands of fighters to sweep the place floor by floor, but they didn't, and now this is the consequence. The old man asks the firefighter for help finding a secret tunnel that's in the building, but then his attention is drawn to an APC driving over a bridge. The armored car breaks through the apartment's barricade, and these bandits with stolen gear come out. If I see this car drive through the wall, I know it's only interested in killing others, because it's ruined the structure of the building, making it vulnerable to monsters from outside. So they don't want the building, they want us. I'm rushing quickly to the truck and hiding beneath it. The smoke hasn't cleared, and it's the last place they would look for someone. All the tenants are rounded together in the lobby, where this guy draws the outline for their new jail, and the leader demonstrates that anyone outside of it will be shot. I'll bet they're regretting killing the beefcake, because if he was still around, he'd take care of these guys for us. The bandits suddenly get ambushed by the firefighter, leading them on a chase through the building as the rest join in the fight. That's when the shopkeeper's wife arrives, fully transformed. She kills one of the bandits and is about to stab the student, but the gamer saves his life. The kid strangles her to death and collapses from a stab wound. The bandit leader realizes that the boy is infected and has his men burn the shopkeeper's wife as he takes them into the elevator. The firefighter frees the other tenants, but another bandit stops them in their tracks. He shoots the veteran, but she eventually kills him. However, the old man realizes the veteran's nose is bleeding. Upstairs, it's not looking good for Hyun-soo. They get ready to execute him, but today it's his lucky day. One of the bandits kills the others and admits he's a monster just like Hyun-soo is, except he believes that it's natural for them to kill humans. When the gamer walks out of the elevator, he finds himself in a standoff with the other survivors, but he's able to convince them to spare the infectee's life. The truth is, they wouldn't be able to kill him anyways. We see what happens when you shoot him with bullets. All they do is bounce right back. Hyun-soo just saved all the tenants' lives in this interaction. This guy is the most dangerous man in the building, and he can't be killed. So right now, our best solution is to escape. Everyone must be working in shifts to help the old man find the tunnel, because as long as we're trapped in the building with this guy, he holds all the cards. The nurse begins having an asthma attack, and the gangster tries to take her to a pharmacy, but he's knocked down by the monster. Hyun-soo here lets them continue to make their way out, but the infectee shoots both of them. Man, this guy is seriously bad news. Defending his friends, he fights the monster, who tells him that this isn't his true form, and his special ability is to take control of dead bodies. He severely wounds the gamer, but Hyun-soo begins to transform, growing a massive wing. The guitarist gets ready to throw a Molotov, but a Molotov cocktail isn't gonna do a damn thing, and we all know it. We might be able to shoot the gas tank of the car, causing a big explosion, but if it doesn't do the job, we've made 2 enemies instead of 1. So this isn't a good idea, and we should give Hyun-soo here the benefit of the doubt, while staying as far away from him as possible. He kills the monster, but then heads for the tenants, but the now healed veteran stops him just before he dies, as the kid turns back to normal and blacks out. The firefighter digs graves for the dead when she discovers a hatch to a secret tunnel. It must be the one the old man was looking for. That night, soldiers arrive. They have the building surrounded and announce they want the special infectee, Hyun-soo. The soldiers hear an explosion and begin shooting, scaring the tenants into the tunnel. But Hyun-soo here decides to step outside to confront the soldiers. The next day, the group finds an exit and climbs out, only to be surrounded by the Korean military. The commander tells the firefighter that the deal isn't over yet because she didn't deliver Hyun-soo to them in exchange for information on her fiance. She's forced to join them, and the survivors are taken away on a military truck. Surprisingly, Hyun-soo is still alive, waking up in an armored car driven by the gangster who no longer has any scars. It must be the body-switching monster. He never killed him, and now he's trapped as he drives through the tunnel and into the open world. But what do you think? How would you beat the monsters in Sweet Home? Let me know with a comment down below.
I think I'm gonna have to mess around and go watch this movie. I want to see how they killed that big buff monster thing. It's your boy BlastphamousHD. Twizzles.